Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of Freeing Your Mind podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Dukeman, and we're just going to go ahead and get right into it today and get started with what this is and what it's all about. Um, we'll do a lot of that by talking about me and who I am and my story and why I'm doing this podcast and what we're hoping to get from it for everybody out there. So, again, Daniel Dukeman. Uh, I've been in the fire service for 20 years and really felt passionate about wanting to start this podcast. About 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with severe PTSD, have gone through all different types of treatments and different things to deal with that, cope with that, and, well, frankly, grow and strengthen and free my mind from that. So, a big part of why this podcast is now going to exist is to help other people who are struggling with PTSD, depression, anxiety, any other trauma related mental illnesses, and to just really form a bond and help as many people as possible. So, with me and my story, as far as getting started with that, back in 2001, right out of high school, graduated high school on like a Thursday. That following Monday, I started a career working in fire. Did that for a number of years as a seasonal firefighter, volunteered on the side when I was on my days off, and eventually became full time. And through that process was exposed to a lot of different things, just like many other firefighters, first responders, police, military, nurses, dispatchers, all those types of people, even just normal people are exposed to things like PTSD. So a big part of that, we when I started, we weren't really taught how to deal with those things and manage those things. It was just always a, hey, does anybody need to talk after a bad call, and not necessarily anybody really wanted to say like, yeah, I need to talk about something. So went a lot of years with that, and you just kind of bury those things. You find different ways to cope with them, and they're not always the healthiest ways. So for me, frankly, I would drink. It was for me, it seemed like this great way to just kind of wash off the shift and just move on with things. Um, Obviously not the best way, but for years and years, I repressed all these things that I had seen and done, all while really loving this career and being able to help people, and um, helping people was something that I always wanted to do. So, well, about 5 years ago, 2018 or so, um, just woke up one morning and my world was just completely shattered. Had experienced a few bad calls recently, but not really knowing what was going on. I just knew that I was like in a bad way broke and just wasn't doing well. So, kind of went through this process of trying to figure out what that was. I didn't want to live anymore. Like, it was an instant shift. My ex-wife pushed really hard, like, hey, something's wrong with you. You need to figure this out. Um, and I struggled for a long time because to be open and willing to talk to somebody felt really, really vulnerable, and felt like I was just really just standing in line to have a badge tattooed on me or put on my forehead that said, hey, I'm crazy. But eventually I did concede to that, yeah, I need to get some help. So I contacted a therapist that specialized in PTSD, and had kind of already done some research and was pretty sure that was what was going on in my head. Went in, got diagnosed, and started that process of trying to heal. It was a long and painful process for me. There was years and years of stuff packed in there. It really felt like every time we uncovered something and dealt with it, something else would pop up, maybe two or three more things, and it just seemed like we're never really getting anywhere. So one of the treatments that I did was EMDR treatment. Um, it's really effective for some people, for others it's not. I did EMDR for probably 3.5, 4 years, um, and it would help. But then I would be exposed to more trauma, and so then I'd kind of slip back down that slope. I was really struggling at the time with even wanting to live. For me, I was in a dark place that I didn't want to live anymore. I couldn't see any point in it, any reason to stay in this life. Even to the point where I was spending more time in my own head trying to think of ways to exit the world without causing any negative effects on anybody else, but just kind of slipping out quietly through the back door. Which, to be honest, there's no way to do that. You're in this, and we're all loved way more than we may recognize, and because of that, you're just not going to escape without profoundly affecting someone else's life in a negative way. So I stuck with the treatments, not really sure if they were working, not really sure what they were doing. Um, and there was an incident that came up with a drowning of a small child, and that was extremely profound for me. Um, Calls with children were always bad, but they weren't really as bad until I had kids of my own. I went through more EMDR treatments, trying to really just stay ahead of it after that call, because I knew it was bad and I knew it was going to affect me. I couldn't really get out of that funk. It was months and months and months, and it wasn't getting any better. I was drinking more, um, just really unhealthy amounts of alcohol. If I only drank a fifth of alcohol in a night, that was a nice calm night for me. I was killing myself slowly with alcohol. I was not putting myself in anybody's helpful arms really. I was kind of just floating along. And it wasn't until I said something to my therapist about um, this not really working, what I was doing, and that I didn't want to live, and that it wasn't getting any better. And we decided that we needed to look into that some more. And it turned out I was resistive. I was resistant to the EMDR treatments, meaning that they just weren't any longer effective for me. I had too much stuff piled up, and for whatever reason, it wasn't working. But one of the things that I know now is that there are so many tools in the toolboxes that are available to us to help, and not one tool is the answer for any one person. So the next thing we looked at was, where are we going to go for treatment options? What's the next step? A ketamine clinic had just opened up in the valley where I live, up in northern Utah, and we had talked about that, my therapist and I, and I was kind of at a point where I was like, you know what, whatever, I don't care. Like, this is either going to work or it's not. I'll give it a try. If it doesn't work, I'm checking out. I'm done. So went through that process, and went to an evaluation there, and talked with them. And of course, one of the first things they wanted me to do was quit drinking. They wanted to put me on medication to help me to quit drinking, because they were worried that I was going to have difficulties with that because of the amount that I was drinking. um, I opted not to do that. I knew that I could go without alcohol if I chose to. So I had to go 2 weeks without drinking. um, Relatively quickly stopped drinking, and it was a rough 2 weeks because I no longer had what I thought was a healthy coping mechanism, which was alcohol. Um, and all the while in this process, like, if anybody's going through this or has gone through this, you know what it does to your world. Um, I had a terrible relationship with my now ex-wife. Um, my kids were not wanting to be around me. I just was not in a good place at all. All the while in my mind, while I'm hyper vigilant and just obsessing over making everything right and perfect in the household, what I'm actually doing is just destroying things, because I've become to a point where I'm so obsessive compulsive about things that by the time everybody gets home, nobody wants to be around me because I'm freaking out about every little thing being out of place. Um, and these are all like cumulative effects of trauma and PTSD, that these things pop up, and things that we start doing cause us to just grossly alter the way we are as human beings. And a lot of it is just because we're trying to protect ourselves, and we think that we're doing something and that's helpful and productive, but it's really not. We're actually being quite destructive. So in the process of all this, I'm watching my world continue to fall apart. Relationship with ex-wife getting worse. Relationship with kids is virtually non-existent. They come home and say hi, Dad, but then they pretty much scurry off to their rooms or somewhere, just because they know that I'm bound to lose my shit at any given time, to be quite frank with you guys. And so I knew I had to do something. It wasn't what I wanted, but I honestly didn't think that anything was going to work. I kind of felt like I had just been forsaken and like, this is it, guys, you know? Um, but I went through the process of not drinking for 2 weeks. Went in to have a ketamine treatment. Really unsure if that was going to work at all. Even in the consult for the ketamine treatment, I kind of was like, okay, so I'm going to do drugs and you're just going to get me high and that's going to be the fix. And it's not really what it is, but that's very much what it felt like to me. Is like, okay, we're just going to just heavily medicate you with this psychedelic and send you off on a trip and you're going to come back and life's going to be great. Um, they assured me that really wasn't what it was. Very low dose and, you know, all those things. So I went in for the treatment and not really sure what that was going to be like, not really sure how that was going to pan out. And the one of the first things they said to me going into the treatment was, don't focus on the trauma. Don't think about these things from the past. That's the past. Think about where you want to be. Think about what you want out of your life. Think about your family and the people you love and the relationships that you want with them. So it's all about an intention, right? So I go into this treatment with an intention in my mind that I'm going to heal and that I love my family and they're the important ones to me, and we're we're just going to release this trauma. We're not even going to think about it. So go in, do the treatment. Um, it's actually like was quite an emotional release for me for the first treatment, um, and helped me quite a bit, at least initially. Had to do 2 treatments a week for 3 weeks, and then we just slowly started stepping a treatment every now and again. So it went from 2 treatments a week to 1 treatment a week to 1 treatment every 10 days to 1 treatment every 14 days, and just slowly spread them out over time. And for those of you that don't know, with ketamine, it causes neuroplasticity in the brain. So it causes our neural pathways to grow and strengthen and even create new ones. It's a pretty remarkable thing. And so in the process of it, if you think about like if you have a truck and you're driving through a grassy field, the truck drives through the field once and there's just the grass is laid over in 2 tire tracks, right? So that's like the forming of a new neural pathway. Well, if the truck drives through that same spot again and again and again, over time we've broken down all the grass in that pathway, and now you have 2 dirt tracks. Well, then you just continue with progression over years and years and years of travel. Now it's just a wide dirt road. It's no longer 2 tracks. Maybe eventually somebody builds some houses along the way. Now you have a paved road. That's kind of the thought process. The more you use this pathway and strengthen it like a muscle, it develops and becomes better, stronger, and more effective for you. So these new neural pathways teach you, help your mind to deal with things and process things. So it takes a while. It's definitely a process. And for me, there was highs and lows. Like I'd feel good, and then a couple days later, I'd feel really crappy and kind of back into to being angry and not in a good place. Lots of anxiety again. Over time, though, as we continued these treatments and they spread further out, things started to get better. Um, I had went into that ketamine treatment saying, okay, I'm gonna go through this and I'm gonna give it, you know, this initial round of 3 weeks and then maybe another month after that. And if I don't notice a change, I'm done. I'm checking out. I'm just not gonna live like this anymore. Well, after a couple months, I did feel a little bit better, and things seemed to be a little bit better. Still not great. It took time, but as we progressed, things did get better. I've been at the ketamine treatments for probably coming up on a year and a half now, and I'm pretty good. Um, I have a treatment about once every 3 months or so, and as I got better in this process, um, I've always wanted to help people, and so I wanted to continue to help people, but I want to do it in a more profound way. So that kind of comes into the segue from my story into why I'm doing this podcast. And to help people, having been through this trauma and experienced these things and been in those really dark places, I wholeheartedly desire to help as many people as I can to overcome these things. And so, in the process of that, um, I've started really talking to a lot of people, posting on social media about PTSD, and just being very vulnerable or freeing with myself and being willing to share those things because nobody wants to talk about this. Um, and I know there's a lot of people out there that are struggling and they just have no desire to talk about it because there's fear associated with it. Nobody wants to be labeled. Nobody wants to worry about any of the negative connotations that come along with it. But the truth of the matter is, it's not a negative thing. These traumatic events happened, and they just do happen. It's part of life. Many of us got into careers that we picked up a lot of bad things. We picked up a lot of traumatic things that we saw because we had to deal with it. But we chose that path. And because we chose that path to deal with it, we've taken on all that. And the only proper thing to do is to process that information and those traumatic events properly so that we can live happy, full lives. And if we can process those things and live a happy, full life, uh, that's a great thing. We need to replenish our cups. We need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves so that we can take care of others. In my case, to be honest, I didn't take any good care of myself. I didn't care. Everything I had, I felt like I had to pour it into everybody else. And it felt selfish to me to take care of myself. And because it felt selfish to me to take care of myself, I just said, there's no time to take care of myself. I have all these other things to do. And I found everything in the possible that I could to stuff into my life to make an excuse to not take care of myself. And while I thought I was just being like a good servant to my family and helping them and my children, I wasn't. I was further depleting myself, which while I was doing things for my family, it I wasn't doing it in an enjoyable way. I didn't get any joy from it. It actually angered me and made me resentful, and ultimately led to a divorce. Ultimately led to my kids not wanting to be around me. And I'm thankful now that with the treatments being what they are, that I have a better relationship with my children than I ever have. And I'm beyond grateful for that because uh, that's my future. That's my posterity. Um, and I want them to be able to learn from me and grow from me and look up to me and do better than I ever did as a parent or in my career. I want them to be more successful. I want them to go out and just be awesome humans. And they can't do that if I'm not there to set a good example for them. So that's kind of where that shift comes in when you go from not wanting to exist in this life anymore to realizing that there is still purpose for you. And I guarantee you, anybody out there that doesn't think there's purpose for you, there is. God has a plan for you, or the universe, if you don't believe in God, whatever it is, there's a plan for you. You were put on this earth for a reason. And you may not see it. There were certainly times in my life that I didn't see it. Um, that I was even angry and scornful and questioned, hey God, why am I here? I'm pretty sure you're done with me. Just let's be done with this and end it. But I assure you, there is purpose, and to me, I feel that my purpose now is to help others. And in doing so, I had to go through a terrible, horrible, dark place and was in darkness and felt alone for a lot of years. In that process, I have come out stronger. I've come out more resilient. Um, and I recognize now that PTSD does not define me, but it refines me. It makes me the person that I am because it has made me stronger. It has made me a better person. So much of what we do and how we're taught to cope with these things, while it's all good, if we haven't already developed those tools, they may not work. Um, A lot of times they talk about after traumatic events, like, oh, just, make time for yourself, do your hobby, go to the gym, uh, you know, go spend time with your loved ones and do all these things. And that sounds great, but if your cup's not full, guys, and some of you probably know this, you're not going to do it. You're just, I was in a place that if I got out of bed in the morning, that was an accomplishment because I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to go and endure life anymore. And certainly, like, to go work out, you're like, man, I'm so fatigued that I don't want to work out. I've got nothing left. And while, yeah, it should help, and the endorphins and get things going, I was just in a bad spot where I couldn't bring myself to do anything. Over time, though, I had to make those changes. I had to make that choice when it came to the treatments to get help and to move forward. And I've gotten to a place now where I have developed those healthy skills and that healthy mindset. Um, my day has always started with purpose now to make sure that I fill my cup first. I have to fill my cup first so I can help other people. And I recognize that now. And part of that is getting up in the morning and doing things that add fulfillment to my life. I journal, I meditate, I work out, I read and study and do things that help to strengthen me and to help me to grow and that feed my mind in a positive way. And through that I've developed this passion to do more for other people. So as we go along this journey together, I am going to have people on this podcast to share their story and what they've done to overcome PTSD. I'm going to have experts come on this podcast and share what they do and how they help those with PTSD and other traumas. I want this to be something that anybody can come into and learn something, and it's to help anyone. You guys don't have to be first responders. You don't have to be military or anything like that. But if you know someone that needs help, if you know someone that is in a dark spot, even if it's you, I want to create a community that that is a healing community to help others that are dealing with these things. So we're gonna run at this thing full speed ahead and see where we go. And I hope you all will join me and everybody that comes on this podcast in this journey. And let's help people. Let's heal together. Let's heal other people together. Let's talk about options that are available and on the table, and what we can do to strengthen one another and to make this world a better place and to heal those who need to be healed so that they can continue to help others as they dedicated their lives to do. And we'll go from there, guys. And again, my name is Daniel Dukeman. I am the host of this podcast. We'll have lots more to come. I'm excited, and stay tuned. Please share this far and wide, and just know that if you need help, there's plenty of help out there. There's so many options available. And if you need to talk to somebody, reach out to me. I will have my social media links down below in the comments section. Um, I'm here to make change happen. And we're going to do that one step at a time. Love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Love y'all. God bless.